Meeting her stopped your world. The ring you give her should stop her heart.
Tina, will you marry me?
Not again! Don't worry, I'm gonna fix this because we want to be your jeweler on our beautiful diamond! Clear! Come back to me, Tina!
Are you okay?
The Press Box is your go-to for pre- and post-game all football season if you're going to check out the Grizz. The Press Box is right next to the walking bridge adjacent to the University of Montana campus, and they have some of the best selection of beers on tap. They got awesome food. If you need a place to gather pre- or post-game before Grizz football games, head to the official headquarters of Grizz Athletics. Grizz football season is here, so don't miss any of the action. The Press Box, Missoula's finest sports bar and the official headquarters of Grizzly Athletics.
Look at that hat. Must be the 20th anniversary of somewhere pretty cool. Down here on the Big Sky Breakdown. What's up, man?
Yeah, just repping Missoula's quality rock, dude. Got the trail here and keeping my hair out of my eyes is basically what this is. It's a real pragmatic move, but man, it does look good on me. But everything looks good on me, so sort of a superfluous comment.
I want to go listen to the trail with Robert Chase now that he's retired. Like this is an experience that I want to have because he's been listening to it every second that he's been awake for 20 years, and I just wonder what I mean, it was probably such a trip to like listen to the radio station that you programmed to the second for 20 years.
At this moment in time, I'm not sure he wants to listen to it with you.
I don't think he wants to listen to it probably at all. I think he probably
wants to play pool and windsurf. Yeah, exactly right.
Well, congratulations to Robert.
Yes,
if you haven't followed along, Ryan and I worked at Missoula Broadcasting Company together for a handful of years. One of our great colleagues, Robert Chase, retired in August. He was the man that spearheaded the trail, and the trail's in its 20th anniversary, and it's certainly one of the coolest parts about Missoula. I'm not just saying that because I worked there. It's a cool place. So if you haven't checked it out and you want a nice little slice of pie of Missoula, check out 103.3 FM. Certainly,
just little 2 clicks of the dial up from 102.9. Just a dip, and you're there. So it's perfect.
All right, I want to talk about a very specific sports dynamic with you.
Okay.
Psychology of fan bases. This is fascinating. First of all, I think that it's great to be broadcasting and to be doing content about schools in Montana because I think we take it for granted sometimes because Montana State, they're so much more like Alabama and Florida and Georgia and Texas than they are like most of the other teams that are in the FCS, right? Like in terms of like the amount of people that care, the passion, and people are crazy about football. And
on a per capita level, that is certainly true. Yeah,
and like the happiness and like the attitude and like vibe in Missoula in the fall is like dictated by if the Grizz are winning or not. And same thing in Bozeman, which is awesome. This is interesting. I've seen this pretty pronounced early on in the season. And I'm starting with Montana State here because the Bobcats have got it done on offense in such a definitive way over the last 8 years leading up to this year. That's with powerful run games, but that also had running quarterbacks. And whether it was Chris Murray or Troy Anderson or Tommy Mellott, I mean, they've had some of the most prolific running quarterbacks in the history of the conference. And also, I mean, the most prolific rushing attacks that weren't triple option attacks that the Big Sky has ever seen. And while that was all going on, I think a lot of people reveled in the ability to dominate the opponent and the ability to dominate the clock and the ability to dominate the line of scrimmage. But also so many people in the fan base wanted more throwing. We're never going to beat North Dakota State until we can throw the ball down the field. Now the Cats have a new offense and a new quarterback, and he can run. Justin Lamson can run. But he's not Tommy Mellott. He's not a true run first type of guy. And they are, they're only rushing for about 220 yards per game, which is about 100 less than what they have been rushing for. They're only averaging about 5 yards a carry, which is about 2 yards per carry less. And I've heard from so many people in Bobcat Nation, why can't we run the ball? Are we going to be able to go anywhere without being able to run the ball? Even though Justin Lamson leads college football in completion percent, I mean, he threw for 300 yards on Saturday. He looked awesome. He was 23 of 26 for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. This is like what has been missing from Montana State. It's just such an interesting dynamic in fan bases and like the psychology of a human where when something's happening, you want something different. And then when that something different happens, you want what you used to have.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is an interesting deal, and I mean, I guess I would say like, well, what does the total yards look like, and what do the total points look like? I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, that's kind of where you want to do it, and also to your point, I mean, I think the yards per rush being down is something to pay attention to. I think that's not nothing, but also like the 100 yards a game less is just because your quarterback doesn't run now, and it used to be that your quarterback did run. Like there it is right there, but your running backs are just pretty much doing what they've always done,
Right.
and so maybe you can do the glass half full thing and say, hey, look at us throwing the football pretty well, relatively speaking. And I also think it's 3 games, and 2 of those games, and I'm saying the first and third game, in fact, the game that Montana State won, blowing out San Diego 41-7, are I'm not even sure those are games that I would throw into the analysis mix for the Bobcats. I would certainly put the South Dakota State game in there. That is the barometer that you should be looking at. How did we do against the Jackrabbits? But like, give it some time to breathe, for crying in the night. You got a very convincing win against a team that you should beat convincingly on Saturday, and you're now into your season. We're coming up now, probably this week after this game, we're at the quarter-way mark of the regular season. And is there improvement? Do you see guys coming together? Do you see things that are going the direction that you want them to go? And again, when you open your season the way Montana State did on the road at Oregon, and then with a top 2 opponent in week 2, it's going to take a little bit to get it figured out. It's going to take a little while for the Grizzlies to get it figured out, opening with no opponent in week 1, and then having kind of a Division II school, in their first game in week 2, and then a real opponent in North Dakota this week that they squeaked by. And so, it's if you take it in the narrative of week over week, how does the team look relatively speaking? Are they stagnant? Are they getting better? Are they digressing? In general, what is it? Is it a particular player? Is it a real position group? Is it a team as a whole? Like, all those are things that you can analyze and look at. And I think it takes a larger sample, and I think the opponents, especially at the FCS level, the opponents really matter. Like, you can't just look at your season statistics and go, hey, we're great, we're terrible, whatever.
Totally.
It's like, when did it happen? Who did it happen against, and how? And then come talk to me.
And it's like,
what up, E?
What's going on? Man, those are some nice medals.
Yeah, man, these are hard to come by.
Yeah, well, I've got 2 of them.
Well, that's nothing like going to March Madness, though.
We did go to a national championship.
Okay, guys, whatever. Let's just get on the Montana party bus and head over to Press Box for lunch.
Yeah.
Nuanez Now and Skyline Sports, covering Montana athletics and the Big Sky Conference better than anybody. The Montana Party Bus and the Press Box are also proud supporters of Montana athletes.
Hey, cheers to you guys, man. Cheers to Montana. Cheers to chasing more champions.
Join Town Pump's Pump It Up Rewards Plus program and never pay full price for fuel again.
Save 5 cents on every gallon every day at any town pump across Montana.
Plus, earn and redeem points on your favorite in-store items to get free stuff with our clubs.
Stop in and pick up a rewards card. Download the Pump It Up Rewards Plus app today.
Or visit townpump.com/rewards to register and start saving.
Right down the road. Pump it up. Oh, yeah.
Look at the top 25 poll, or even the top 15 teams or whatever. Looking at the records is a complete waste of time too, because this team might have played, like Montana State played Oregon and South Dakota State. Right. This other team might have played 2 down games, and you know what I mean? They played a D2 and they played all these different opponents, and the Grizzlies are a game short already because of the week 0 bye or week 1 bye, and yeah, I agree. The statistics are complete throwouts at this point, and it's also so hard to analyze like who's better than who, because how do you gauge like oh man, Montana State had some flashes in a 59-13 loss, but man, North Dakota State, they beat the tar out of Tennessee Tech or whatever. Like
Right.
those are just completely not
So
even.
what? Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what? It's not
Yeah.
created equal. The other dynamic that I think was such an omnipresent one in the Grizz world that isn't currently, and I find it both fascinating and refreshing, is basically ever since Dave Dickinson came off the bench and overtook Burt Wilberger in the early 90s and then became the guy, there's been very few quarterbacks for the Grizz that have been entrenched in the fan base's minds as absolutely the guy. Even guys like John Edwards, who won a national championship, the Grizz fans were always saying, well, what about Brandon Neal? What about this guy from Great Falls that transferred from Wyoming who's backing him up? And it's just been kind of like on down the line. The backup quarterback has been so many of the fans' favorite.
Yeah, I mean, Ayat had it entrenched certainly the last couple of years. Brian Ayat when he was doing it.
Totally. And that's what's so interesting now is
but
KLE Ayat is sort of the first entrenched guy since his dad, really. And I guess I find that refreshing. And I don't know if it matters at all in the actual scheme of success for a football team, but it is sort of nice to have conversations with people about the Grizz where, for better or worse, or whatever you think of KLE Ayat, he's the guy right now. And I think it's an interesting dynamic. It's so refreshing considering that he and or Logan Pfeiffer just looking over their shoulder all year last year.
yeah, I mean, I think that this is what it should have been last year. Um, in my view, it probably should have been Ayat, but even if it was Fife, fine. But like, pick a guy, pick somebody and go. And that didn't happen, and it was very obviously to the detriment of the Grizzlies last season, and that's not the only thing that was to their detriment last season. So now you've got one dude, you maximize his strengths, you coach him up, you help him grow, you work with him. He had some real ugly bad in the game against North Dakota on Saturday, and then all of a sudden he had some dimes and pulled it out of the fire late, and it turned out to be a thrilling game in Washington Grizzly and a great game for Montana fans to escape with a victory that looked like it was absolutely not going to happen. So it was interesting all the way around that way, and yeah, to have what appears to be week in, week out starter. I think is a good thing because you know where your benchmark is and you can build around that.
Your impressions of the Grizz in general against North Dakota, but also the way that Ayat was able to sort of overcome a lot of the obstacles that he faced, both from getting sacked a bunch. He had some bad turnovers in the first half, but then I thought, two really nice drives to pull that game out against North Dakota. Just your thoughts on the Grizz broadly, but also Ayat's ability to lead them down the stretch.
I think you're going to like this. It felt very much like the Minnesota Vikings week one, where you went, well, good Lord, this is terrible. Like, this is a bad looking football team. And I think for the first half and really through three quarters, the prevailing feeling in the stadium was, what is this? This harkens back to 2024, which nobody inside Washington Grizzly Stadium wanted to have happen. And it also felt like, oh, maybe last week really was just in function of playing a Division II opponent. Maybe the good vibes and the excitement and how strong the team looked and was really just a completely outmatched opponent, even though I think the prevailing thought, and I certainly share it, was that Central Washington's pretty good. Like they're not just a rollover team. But I thought the play calling offensively in the first half was just how come Eli Gilman isn't just getting the ball 2 out of every 3 snaps? Right. Why is it impossible to throw the ball in the middle of the field? Is there not a tight end on the roster that even has the capacity to get one single target? Like, why? Why is it just outside all day and then bring in somebody who's not Gilman and give him the ball and see what happens? It was totally bizarre. And again, I mean, it's just I have no idea what the rationale or what the goals are or why they're like why. And like, okay, you put a game plan together, this stuff you want to go to, fine, but like, hey, maybe just try this if it's not working, and it's clearly not working.
Well, they brought in Josh Gale, who was a first team All Big Sky guy at UC Davis 2 years ago. Then he got hurt and he lost his spot to Winston Williams, who was an All American last year. But that's the only reason he transferred. I mean, he's the best tight end in the Big Sky. You brought him in. You also brought in a 6'7" guy from Tennessee, who's a former 4-star recruit as a tight end. Has he got a target yet this year? Like if I don't think they've thrown Titus Rohr the ball. I know Josh Gale has been thrown the ball twice, and it was on the last two possessions of the entire game. But
Well, I think
more than just who's getting targets, though, like you're saying, they are not using the middle of the field whatsoever. And then the
No.
other team, the opponent, whether it's Central Washington or North Dakota, they can stack the box because who's the man? Gilman's the man. You put 9 guys in the box to try to stop this guy because he's your best player. If you don't do anything to combat that, it's just going to be so clunky, which is what it was for first 3.5 quarters on Saturday.
And additionally, I thought Ayat didn't look good. I mean, his first throw was an interception, and he was trying to throw. He threw into it was a one-on-one play. It was a 50-50 ball. He knew the guy was covered, and he made a decision to throw it. But he underthrew a ball that had to be overthrown, if anything. And it was I'm not even saying it was a bad decision necessarily. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was 3rd and long. So it was going to be a punting situation anyways. But if you're going to give it, like, it's supposed to be a 50-50 ball, and it was a 90-10 ball for the defense. Like, it was a layup interception, really, at the end of the day. And it was just terrible execution on his part. Like, you got to get it out there, and he didn't. But also, he just wasn't sharp. Didn't look good through most of the first half. And I thought, again, he wasn't helped by the play calling, but he didn't help the play callers either. And in general, it was a stagnant, ugly, bad-looking offense. And North Dakota was by no means a juggernaut, but they at least kind of moved the ball on a couple drives consistently enough to get some scores, and then they get a lead. And then they look, I mean, in the third quarter, or maybe it was late second quarter, I thought ball game over. No, it was third quarter when they score a touchdown that gets called back for a formation penalty. And, I mean, talk about an olive branch or however you want to talk about it getting extended to the Grizz, because that game on that touchdown, over.
Totally.
And it was not a penalty that, it was a hold, and if he hadn't held him, the touchdown wouldn't have happened. No, it's a touchdown. They did it, and you have a wide receiver lined up, covering the tackle, and it gets called back. And it's just like, man, I mean, you got to think about the sleepless ride home for the Fighting Hawks to give that one away on that. But then
that wasn't even the only mistake they made, right? They had the clock befuddlement at the end of the first half where they could have spiked it and then they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And they probably could have had a field goal right there and they didn't get it. There was another time, I can't remember what part of the game it was in, where they declined. I think they either went for it or they punted when they could have kicked a field goal. They had a couple other clock management things. I mean, shoulda, coulda, woulda, whatever, and that's what makes good teams and great teams and good coaches and great coaches, and not all of the above. But they absolutely could have and probably should have scored 10 to 13 more points in that game, and if they do, they win going away.
Well, and obviously, as it really turned out, the missed extra point on the first touchdown of the game. But then you also got to say the Grizzlies get all the credit in the world for capitalizing on the opportunity that was given to them. And they go down, they score a touchdown, they get a turnover, they score another touchdown, and all of a sudden they're in the lead with 2.5 minutes to go, and the place is jumping. I mean, you talk about a pretty lackadaisical and even negative atmosphere through, 3/4 of that football game. That's certainly what Washington Grizzly felt like first half for sure and well into the third quarter. But boy, when that thing flipped, that thing got rocking and rolling, and I think North Dakota got the full effect of what Washington Grizzly can feel like when it is riled up. But it took Montana getting way behind the 8 ball to come back and get the thing done. But they did get it done. and the defense made the stops that they had to make. The offense finally got it rolling and made some big plays, got some scores. I mean, at the end of the day, IOP throws for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions again. But again, those interceptions were early in the game when it came to crunch time, and he had to execute. He did, and Montana gets a good to very good win against a ranked opponent in their first Division I football game of the year. And nobody's gonna say anything about, well, how did it happen? At the end of the day, it's a 24-23 victory, and Montana's 2-0.
Right, Tootell.
Thanks so much for listening to the Big Sky Breakdown podcast series and for tuning into our Skyline Sports YouTube channel. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe to both the podcast and all your various podcast hosting networks and to the YouTube channel as well. Thanks to our great partners, including Ryan Miller and Coburn Law. Ryan Miller and Coburn are ace attorneys, each with different expertise. Paul Ryan, the master when it comes to DUIs. Angie Miller, excellent in medical malpractice. Abigail Coburn, federal drug charges. She's the one you want defending you. They can help in any and all sorts of criminal defense cases. They have a live answering service that's available 24 hours a day, 406-542-2233. You can also visit rmcattorneys.com. Ryan and Miller and Coburn, your Montana attorneys. Let's hear from RMC right now. People hear criminal defense, medical malpractice, personal injury, wrongful death, DUIs. Might be a little broad for people, though. So let's go through it. Let's just give people examples of each of these types of cases. Start with medical malpractice, because I know that's one of your expertises.
Yeah, so medical malpractice, it can look like a doctor doing something wrong during a surgery. We've seen clients have something left inside of them after a surgery.
Wow.
A misdiagnosis from a doctor that they, miss, whether that be an infection or diagnosing some sort of illness, and then that individual having to live with that and having more damages because of that misdiagnosis. Wrongful death, personal injury, those can overlap, whether it's somebody gets in a car accident and, lose their life, or they're in a car accident and, they have what seem to be minor injuries at first, oftentimes can develop into something more. I mean, we have a lot of people who will call us and say, I don't even know if I need an attorney. My neck hurts, my back hurts, I think I'm just sore. But then come to find out they actually have a bulging disc or a fractured disc in their back and they need surgery. As for the criminal side, DUI is fairly straightforward. People, driving under the influence, but sometimes that doesn't just look like alcohol. It can be drugs involved as well. And then for the criminal side, we really see a multitude of things, whether that be assault, getting into some heavier stuff like, sexual intercourse without consent. We see the whole, gamut there and are ready to help people.
Being in this industry since I was in college, one of the things I think we take the most pride in is Aspen Sound's been such a presence in Missoula for almost 40 years. The cool parts about our job is people always ask me what do we do for a living. I sell phone, whether it's as simple as window tint all the way up to integrating a backup camera into a factory screen. I'm usually pretty excited about that, just so we can
All right, Tootell on the Big Sky Breakdown, probably presented by Ryan Miller and Coburn Law. Paul Ryan, an accomplished and veteran lawyer who has been practicing criminal defense in Western Montana for more than 3 decades. He added Angie Miller as a partner to the firm a couple of years ago, and they are so happy now to add Abigail Coburn into the fold. She is also a master in criminal defense, particularly if it comes to drug charges and federal drug charges. Ryan Miller and Coburn can help you with everything from criminal defense, personal injury, medical malpractice, DUIs. Visit them online, rmcattorneys.com, or call 406-542-2233. Ryan Miller and Coburn, your Montana attorneys. All right, so back to this thought, though, about early season analysis. It is really difficult because the opponents are so invariable. But you can see some stuff that is schematically happening. For example, and I don't want to be comparing and contrasting because the season is super long, and I know that every time we compare and contrast the Cats and the Grizz with each other before it's November, it's just, a giant pissing match on both sides, and that's just how it goes. But that's what makes the rivalry great. But regardless, just right off the top of your head, who's Montana State's best player? Taco
You tell
Dell.
me.
Taco Dell, probably.
Think Taco?
I mean, I think Taco Dell is one of at least their best players, right? Taco Dell, Adam Jones, Julius Davis. Those are probably the top, offensive candidates.
I mean, Adam Jones would be, to me, the first
Sure. I mean, he was the Big Sky Offensive Player of the Year.
name to come,
Preseason.
right?
Yeah. My point is, Taco Dell is their most effective player on the perimeter. And what has Montana State done in the first 3 games of the season? They've schemed it up to get Taco Dell the ball a whole ton of times. I mean, he's already got 25 catches. He's already got over 300 yards. He's leading the league in multiple receiving categories. I mean, he had more catches against Oregon than Oklahoma State's whole team, than Northwestern's whole team. So, I mean, he's doing it against all 3 tiers of the competition that Montana State has played. My point is that I think that the scheme is one that is oriented towards getting your playmakers plays in space, the ball in space, the chance to make people miss. That is the most, when people, I know that there's been such this back and forth between, are we just stupid fans that are just watching from the stands or the press box when it comes to the Grizz play calling? Or is this just like a totally fundamentally flawed thing that we are watching? Because last week, I mean, thousands of people left the game last week.
Yeah.
And they missed out on the great comeback. But when the home team goes 3 and out, 8 possessions in a row, I mean, I can't say I'm not going to leave, but I can't say I blame you if you did, right? So I guess it's just it's so crazy to me that there is so many different ways in modern day college football with the way the rules operate and the advent and the implementation of the RPO and all these different factors. It is so easy. I shouldn't say easy. It's so simple to get your guys the ball in space in a very efficient way and use mismatches athletically to roll up yards. And for whatever reason, Montana just refuses to do that. But then when they want to, they can. That's the part that is just absolutely mind-boggling to me.
I think if Bobby had his just absolute choice, could just call his shot, what he'd want would be the 5 baddest mamma jammas on the offensive line that there are in the country, and he'd just road grade the team and throw the ball, 15 times a game.
Okay, so he had that though in his first tenure, and they did that. So why don't they do it again?
Because they can't get those dudes.
Why? That's the question, right?
Okay. There's a lot of reasons. Okay.
Yeah.
But aside from that, the point is okay, well, if you can't do that, then what are you gonna do? And I don't know what Coach P's, what his philosophy is. We don't hear very much from Coach P's in any type of media or, conversational capacity. So it's pretty tough to say well, what's your ideology? How do you want to get this thing done? Who are the players? What are you looking at? What are the things? What are the decision-making tools that go into making this happen? It's pretty easy to see who the best individual talent is on offense. See, Gilman. And then the rest of the group, what they bring to the table, you can kind of see it at times when it's used, but also it's very easy and absolutely correct to look at the inefficacy of what's happening in, to your point, 8 consecutive drives. The Montana Grizzlies going 3 and out 8 times in a row against Alabama would be unforgivable.
Right. I mean, right.
You got to get a first down in there.
And here's the part where, okay, again, if you're a person that's well, these guys are just armchair quarterback in this, these guys, what do these guys know? Whatever. What I do know is that if you have a 3rd and 11, you should not throw a 2-yard hitch. That is not the play that you should run. And
That's
it's
right.
not as if that's the option that is being given to them by the defense. There was 2 different occasions.
That was the play.
There's 2 different occasions in the first half I can remember when Ayat catches the snap and he throws it to a guy that had just turned around 2 yards down the field, or a 2-yard out or whatever. You have to throw the ball to the sticks. That is 7th grade football 101. Ellis and Kai can do this sort of stuff, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, those are the things where it's sort of baffling, and yet because Montana finds a way to win at the end, you can't sit here and avalanche them about it either.
Right.
But when you talked about early season analysis, here's what's going to happen. And this might sound duplicitous. I actually think it is, and I think it's totally justified. But if the Grizzlies roll up Indiana State this week and then blast Idaho, everybody's just going to look back, if they look back at this game at all, and go, they just needed to get it going. It was their first game against a Division I team. It was a good North Dakota team. They struggled in the first half. They figured it out, and now Montana's rolling. If they struggle against Idaho State, who, by the way, lost last week 73-0, which is not easy to do, and then say they lose to the Vandals, everybody's going to go, oh, so they squeaked by in a North Dakota game that they should have lost because they had terrible play calling throughout, and we're seeing that again, and this team is nowhere near what they're supposed to be, and they're not getting better. And so what I'm saying is, what happens over the next couple weeks retroactively informs the narrative of what happened before. And I think that in some senses is fair, because we kind of watched two different football teams. We watched 37 minutes of one Grizzly football team, and then we saw 23 minutes of another Grizzly football team. And the 23-minute version was like a really good version of Grizzly football, and the 37 minutes was a really bad version of Grizzly football. And I'm talking coaching, playing, execution, all of it in there. And I think it's still hard to say, well, so what are you? And so then it's going to take more games against more teams before you kind of get a clear picture. And Colter, this is the nature of the Big Sky Conference. I'm not saying this. I don't think this is the case this year at all, by the way. I think there's some real teams, including North Dakota last week, Idaho coming in great. But we've had seasons, Colter, where you and I go, we aren't going to know until week 11 the first thing to think about this football team, be it Montana or Montana State, because you're playing games against teams that stink overall, or road games against great teams that you're probably not going to win, or whatever. And it's like, you're not getting the same real honest to God matchup until Halloween, and that's just kind of the nature of it at some times and in some senses.
But it's
Cash One Pawn, Missoula's #1 pawn shop.
Well, you want money? We got money. You need money? We got money. We're cash.
Do yourself a favor and make Cash One Pawn part of your online shopping habits. Cash One Pawn has an awesome online inventory, everything from firearms to power tools to speaker equipment to jewelry. Visit Cash One Pawn today.
Cash One Pawn.
8720 Roller Coaster Road, CashOnePawn.com.
Thanks so much for listening to our Big Sky Breakdown podcast series and for tuning into our Skyline Sports YouTube channel. If you have not, please rate, review, and subscribe. Particularly subscribe. Click on the subscribe button. That helps us out a ton. Thanks to our great partners who help make all of this content possible, including Ty Hobbs at Keller Williams Real Estate. Ty's a great friend of mine, guy I lift weights with in the mornings, and a guy I golf with as much as I can, but he's also an ace realtor. I did not choose him as my realtor because he's my friend, although that was a big perk. He is excellent when it comes to everything from efficiency to negotiation to no frills, no BS. He got our house on the market and got it sold in less than 24 hours, more like 4 hours. It was an impressive turnaround. He got us exactly the contract that we wanted. We needed to stay in our house for a couple months because we had a new build coming up. He negotiated that flawlessly. The negotiation part is the number one reason why we chose Ty, but he also has a great acumen when it comes to construction, building, remodels. We had a flood in our house that I needed help with repairing. Boom. He helped me out. Awesome service, awesome job. And if you're in the market for a realtor, Ty Hobbs is your guy. Let's hear more about the current real estate market from the man himself. So let's start with, how would you characterize the real estate market currently in both Missoula and Western Montana?
Well, currently in Missoula, we've seen a rise in inventory and buyer activity slow down a little bit. So it's turning more into a buyer's market, more than I've probably ever seen in the last 10 years or so.
So what does that mean, a buyer's market? How would you define that?
A buyer's market is really just means that there's more homes for sale than there are buyer demand. So buyers have choices, especially in negotiations.
And that means less leverage for somebody that's selling their house, more leverage for somebody that's tried to buy a house, correct?
Correct. More leverage for buyers.
Okay, so if you are a buyer and you hire you as your realtor, how do you go about then sort of taking advantage of that said advantage?
Well, right now you have the upper hand in negotiations, right? And first we start with the CMA and get a value and see where that price falls in, or where the value is for the buyers. And then there's other things that we can negotiate, such as like seller concessions to help buy down the interest rate or give you a temporary break or relief on an interest rate to help with that monthly payment. So
if people want to find out about that and other listings that you have, how do they find them?
Best way is just get a hold of me by phone, 406-544-9794.
But it's becoming more of a reality in the FCS. And I think that's the part that is at the same time cool to be along for the ride with the Montana schools in this time where they have this opportunity to just be this omnipresent, dominant force at the same time as each other and be on a collision course. Basically, like if things go according to plan at Montana State in the landscape that currently exists in the Big Sky Conference, then that means the rivalry game should be for the Big Sky Championship every single year. That's cool to have to get to cover, right? But on the other hand, it's also there's just these like weeks like this week where you're just like checking another box, right? Like Indiana State's coming to town. The only thing that could happen that's interesting is a complete calamity that involves a Grizz collapse.
Right.
And that's not that fun to cover, even if it would be interesting. And same thing with Mercyhurst and Bozeman, right? Like they go out and beat the Cats. That's interesting. It's not necessarily fun to cover because that would take a complete meltdown for that to happen.
And that's why I do think that your best way to analyze this stuff is just eye test of your football team.
No, right.
Like the opponent matters. And when I say we're not going to learn anything about the team, you're not going to learn anything about the team at sometimes compared to who they play. But you can always learn something about the team from the game they play.
That's right.
And that's why after week 1 against Central Washington, I was really pretty up on Montana. Like I thought, man, this looks like a real football team. This looks like good both sides of the ball. Guys getting it done.
Good talent.
It's not just because you're playing a Division II team that you're rolling over. I've seen Montana State win games by 50 that I thought they were unimpressive.
Oh yeah.
They won in an impressive fashion 2 weeks ago. I thought they won in a very unimpressive fashion, even though it was exciting and good at the end. It wasn't good enough in my view. And, if that same version of Montana is the version that rolls out, especially on the offensive side of the ball, that is not going to be good enough for the Grizzly fan base for a full season.
Okay, last question for you then. Back onto the Montana State angle of this. The Cats did sort of bow up and play these two really tough opponents right out the gates. That's not necessarily something that was planned because the Oregon contract was signed way back in 2019 or whatever.
When the Pac-12 still existed.
Well, exactly, right? And like Leon Costello told me at the Oregon game, he's like, man, if I would have known like what the NIL era would have become and like that Oregon has $40 million to pay their roster, I probably wouldn't have signed this game. Like it's not worth the $700,000 that we're getting today for like, cool experience for the guys or whatever, but like not an equitable playing field. Regardless, because Montana State did play those two dynamite opponents and then lost both games, then it creates this sort of dynamic where, okay, what are they? But also, if they are still really good, now they have to basically just win out until the end of November to then set themselves up for again, then like Judgment Day with UC Davis coming to town, and then they get to come to Missoula to play the Grizz. So how much pressure does that put on Montana State, though? Because they are now basically in the scenario where it's like they have no other decision or choice but to win 8 games in a row to set up this the end of season scenario to put themselves in the spot that they've been accustomed to being at the last 5 or 6 years.
I think it's a real good question, Colter, and I think you framed it well by saying to set themselves up. The beauty about the FCS level and now about the FBS level, and we can get into that a little bit, is that Montana State is not in danger of like not going to the postseason. They're not in danger of missing out. But as you've highlighted over and over again, home games are everything in the postseason. And with 2 losses, even if it is at Oregon and South Dakota State, You can't lose more games than that and expect to have a really solid seed that is bringing people through Bozeman, bringing teams into Bozeman. And I think that's really important. So I do think there is a layer of pressure, or maybe, if you want to spin it positively, urgency, which I think to some extent could be beneficial. If Coach Vegan sort of appropriates it in a positive fashion, those two losses, certainly Oregon, and I guess I would say a double overtime loss, the way the game went down. I don't think any national media, any voting people, any of the committee take that and really put demerit points on Montana State. They're certainly going to give a check mark in the direction of the Jackrabbits when the time comes for that win on the road. But Montana State still has it out there in front of them. But yeah, like, you certainly can't lose games that you're supposed to win now and think that you're going to just have a bye for sure and be at home for, through the quarterfinals or whatever the case may be. So I do think that does add an element, but that also is, when you talk about the players, the kids who are actually on the football team, yeah, they may be aware of that to some extent or not. I mean, shoot, Lawrence Taylor didn't even know who was playing in his division when he was playing in the NFL as best defensive player of all time. So you don't have to know everything in the world that's going on around you to be really, really good, you know? But I don't think that ultimately has really any import on what happens on the field. But I think that the coaches can use some of that to maybe sharpen focus. I think that what we talk about effort a lot of times, and teams going in and looking like they're not, they're not at 100% level. Like not that they're not trying their hardest, but that they're, for whatever reason, they're lethargic, or they're not quite up to the energy level that they should be. Or you see the teams that are, and they're just banging, you know what I mean? And really what that is like, nobody's rolling out there. We've talked about this. Nobody rolls out there and says, okay, today's my 85% try day. This is the game where I'm only going to do B- work. No, everybody's out there giving it everything they've got all the time. The separation, as they say, is in the preparation, right? It's what did you do throughout the week to get ready to be at your best when it came time to play ball. And that is a discipline that's hard to capture and hard to do week after week after week after week after week. And I think that you can play a little bit of those two losses from Montana State into really laser focusing. What are we doing on a Thursday here at the end of September? What are we doing on a Wednesday here in the early part of October? Are we getting the lifts that we're supposed to get? Are we getting the work that we're supposed to get? Because guess what? This game really matters again. And so those are the sort of messages that I think could prop up the Bobcats in a certain way through the dog days of just the grind of a football season.
Well, this is where the Brent Vegan and some coaching cliches are omnipresent and everlasting because they are true, right? And it's the Craig Bowl that comes from the Tom Osborne, and that's from all the way back in the 80s at Nebraska. We're playing to our standard, therefore we're playing ourselves. But we're trying to execute at the absolute maximum level we can, no matter who we are playing.
Yeah,
and that's something that's been passed on from Tom Osborne to Greg Bowl to now Brent Vegan, and he talks about it constantly. He talks about it every single week. So I think that's one thing that can certainly keep the Bobcats afloat. Ryan Tootell here on the Big Sky Breakdown. We're out of time, but good to see you, buddy. Thanks so much for checking in with us, and maybe we'll see you this weekend. But in the meantime, have yourself a wonderful day. Thanks for doing it.
You got it.